there was really two views of the legal arguments here. One is that the felonious assault charge by the defendant, when the defendant was defending against that charge, there's really two ways to do it. One is an element negating defense. That's where every criminal charge has distinct elements. The state has to prove each and every one of those elements beyond a reasonable doubt. If they fail to do that for any one element of the crime charged, the jury's instructed that they have to acquit you. And a negative element negating defense might be something like, well, the state has to prove it was me who did whatever the bad thing is, and it wasn't me. I have an alibi. I was someplace else. I wasn't at this scene when the bad thing happened. So you're negating one of the elements of the criminal charge. The other type of defense that you can raise, class of defense, is not an element negating defense, but a affirmative defense. And an affirmative defense is one in which you're conceding to the underlying conduct. You're not saying it wasn't you who did whatever the bad thing is. You're saying the opposite of that. You're saying it was me. So I concede all the elements of the criminal charge, but I nevertheless should not be held legally liable because I have an affirmative defense, in this context, the legal defense of self-defense. So when you claim self-defense, you're not saying you didn't shoot that guy. That's what an alibi defense would be doing, an element negating defense. When you're claiming self-defense, you're saying the opposite of that. You're saying, I did shoot him. He died as a result of my bullet. I did that. But I did it under the circumstances that my conduct qualifies as lawful self-defense and therefore was legally justified, and I should be free of criminal liability. In this case, the state prosecutors and the dissent here was essentially arguing that because the defendant here stated repeatedly that he never intended to actually hit the aggressor with the bullet, but merely to fire a warning shot to scare him, to get him to back off, that what he was doing was raising an element negating offense, because one of the elements of assault would be that you intentionally sought to cause somebody harm. And the state says, well, if that's what he was doing, if he was raising an element negating defense like we are arguing, then that's not self-defense. Self-defense is when you concede to the underlying elements of the criminal charge. And if it wasn't self-defense, he should not be entitled to a self-defense jury instruction. That's the argument that convinced the trial judge to deny the self-defense jury instruction and convince the mid-level appellate courts to agree with the trial court that that was the right decision. That's what the majority of the Ohio Supreme Court disagreed with. They said the defendant was not engaged in an element negating defense, but in an actual affirmative defense, conceding the underlying conduct. He never denied he fired the shot. He said he fired the warning shot as self-defense.